So considerations for me when choosing an off-grid toilet was I'm in a climate where things freeze probably from maybe November till sometime in the spring. So composting toilets would work part of the year but not all of the year as far as I understand. Two, my power supply here is relatively limited. So incinerating toilets, as far as I can tell, take a fair amount of power. Three, the typical pit outhouse style, although I think there's a lot of reasons you might choose to go that way. Where I am and the tightness of the space was a factor, as well as odor. And I know that's controllable, but it was a consideration. This toilet is in the class that was called urine diverting. I bought it from a store called the Cabin Depot. And what this does is it separates urine and stool, and there's probably a few reasons for that, but one apparently is that odor is worse when the two are mixed. So what this does, you have a tube that urine drains through, which then can be collected either in a reservoir or just drained out of the toilet. And two, for the stool, is it's collected in a black plastic bucket that's lined with a compostable bag. And then you have the option of either compost the stool, you can dispose of the stool, I guess there's different options there, you can choose what you like. So that's what I went with. There's a fan built into this toilet, which is great because what it does is the toilet is vented. You can either do a roof vent or a side vent. I went with a side vent. So the fan does two things. It pushes odor out of the outhouse, but it also dries out the stool. And that makes it lighter and whatnot. One issue we had when we first started this is we didn't have the fan hooked up yet. And there were a lot of insects getting in, but once the fan started functioning, it's been really very fine, like no issues at all with insects. So the way we've rigged up the fan is it's hooked up to a battery, and the battery's hooked up to a solar panel, and so far that's been running steady. I think the fan only takes it might be 5 watts of power, so not a whole lot. And I have a 40-watt solar panel connected to it, which if you had full direct sun, you might not even need a 40-watt panel, but in my situation here, there's not a lot of sun exposure. So that's what we chose. And then for the interior of the outhouse, I just put some small shelves in to hold the typical outhouse supplies. And these curtains are quite interesting. They're made by a woman that I work with, and they have designs of various old school style outhouses on them. I thought they were a nice touch. There were, as you can see, some insects in here, so we did have the sticky sheets on the window, and up until we put in the fan we did have more insects, but they seem to have stopped now. Also might partially be because the weather's cooler, but I think most of the fan, honestly. These BioBlue toilet deodorizer packs from Reliance are also useful. Less so now that the fan's working, but they're useful. They do deodorize the toilet really well. They come in small packets, and you can break the packet and sprinkle it in to the outhouse. And it wouldn't have to be just this type of outhouse, could be any kind. I apologize for the video. It's a little small shooting in the outhouse space, but 2 small shelves at the entrance, and then you can have light on one, or I have a light on one, and then the other shelf, I guess you can use whatever you want. And then in the inside of the outhouse, at the top of the walls, there's a fair amount of shelving space. Again, I find with off-grid living, building that type of space and having shelving, not that you're always going to use it, but sometimes it is useful to have. On the back of the outhouse, as I mentioned, we have 2 pipes. So the upper pipe is the stool, so that's what the fan, the tube through which the fan moves air out of the toilet, and then the bottom tube is the urine tube. So this could be hooked to a reservoir or a drain. So that's what we're doing here. Put an outhouse, a window in the back of the outhouse, which is nice for light and also for aeration. And then I went with the lap siding, which I used using my Woodland Mills lap siding attachment, and it's going pretty well. I haven't finished any of the siding. I might do that with some sort of a stain, but I tend to like the idea of just letting things weather, so I'm probably going to just do that.